morning, everyone. I'd like to call the City Council meeting of Thursday, August 13th, 2026 order. First item is public comment. Citizens are permitted to address the City Council for up to 3 minutes for anything on consideration workshop on the agenda, and each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Susan, okay, Susan, you are up. Sorry. Just in time.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm disorganized. My name is Susan Ridley, and I'm a 35-plus year resident of Woodstream. Thank you for allowing me to speak to all of you this morning. First off, I want to mention I do appreciate the news release yesterday, providing an update on the animal shelter. Sorry, I'm out of breath. That was very informative, and I was glad to receive the updated information. So, what I want to talk about now is last week the city showed a chart that showed the city tax compared to other Texas cities of the same size. However, I think a chart comparing our rate to other surrounding 14 county cities should also be provided, because those cities are competition, not Raleigh, not South Lake, not all those places. So those folks would be Missouri City, Richmond, Rosenberg, Stafford, and Fauquier. How did that tax rate compare to those cities? Because those are truly the ones that people are considering moving into in Fort Bend. Other cities are not comparable with ours, but still, that's who we're competing with. Also, the main thing is the city salaries are so off the chart. I keep looking at the government salaries website, and Sugar Land salaries are just insane. You are planning a 2.8% across the board increase. I don't know how you would be able to do something similar to last year when given the following positions, the following increases had these percent increases. The city manager got a 6.25% increase. The city attorney, 5%. The battalion chief, 40.9%. One assistant city manager, 21%. Another assistant manager, 8.2%. Another assistant manager, 34.8%. Another one, 43.7%. And one particular firefighter, paramedic, got 122%. We have 6 assistant managers, city managers, and we are very top heavy. You say we are cutting positions next year. However, there are currently 7 open positions right now. Perhaps the salaries listed online include benefits, including bonuses or call outs. I don't know. But the number of folks making in excess of $200,000 is just crazy. The budget increase from $329 to $343 million is percentage-wise lower than the last 2 years, but with the decrease in population and the decrease in the use of city services, like for example, the cost of the service by both the fire and police department dropped 10 and 21% respectively, according to your page 42 of the online budget report. Not sure we need the increase. Personnel costs represent 75% of our total budget. That's some of the top heavy jobs, not the line folks. Thank you for your time and service to the community.
Great. Thank you very much, Susan. Has anyone else filled out a form to speak?
No, Mayor, they have not.
Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, Andy, and you can fill out a form afterwards.
Hi, my name is Nan Pinto. I think I'm going to focus my comments on the debt because I think that's the purpose of the conversation today. So a couple of things to note. Nowhere in the budget document or even in the monthly financial report, I'm not sure if the city council or the mayor knows what's our total outstanding debt as of July 31st. The only place that number was there was in a document filed with the Texas Comptroller General, which said our city debt as of September 30th was $605 million. Our outstanding debt was $800 million, or issued debt, but the total outstanding, which is the per capita per citizen, right, which is in the budget document, and I think that's the recommendation I gave last time. I'm a financial person, I'm an accountant, but if I cannot figure out that number because it's not there in the budget, how is ordinary citizens like Susan and everyone else trying to figure out what is the outstanding debt that the city owes, both from a tax standpoint as well as from a non-tax standpoint? because we're issuing certificates of obligation as well, which is not voter-approved debt, right? So I think we need to be transparent about that. The second comment that I have in terms of the debt is that the per capita, as I said, is increasing 38% if I compare last year and this year. So what is driving that increase? I think that is not explained adequately in the budget as well. I think that's very critical for citizens because and that's the recommendation I gave last year as well on the budget document. I don't think we are very clear in terms of what is the per capita debt and what is the outstanding debt and showing that increase year on year and what is driving that increase. I understand we had capital projects of 183 million last year, but probably not all of them started. So that's why our debt, we probably did not draw enough of that, the debt from either the GO bonds or the CEOs. But I don't think that information is very clear in the budget document. And then, and that's why my question probably to the mayor and the city council is that if that information is not provided, I mean, how are you guys informed adequately to make decisions on the city? So I think that's the other comment which I made was per the documents, the general fund decreased by 1 million last year. That was the proposal, and that was there in the document. But then my debt service funds and enterprise funds decreased by 4.9 or 5.9 million. So that my approved or the adopted budget was 513 million, which was 6 million less than what was actually proposed, right? But I don't know if the city council was aware of that, the fact that the other funds also decreased proportionately, which has, of course, an impact on the M&O rate as well as the debt service. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, public comment is closed now. Next item, 4A, 2027 fiscal year budget workshop. Review of and discussion on the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget and 5-year capital improvement program 2027-2031, inclusive of all funds and forecasts. And Shalay Stoneman, our Director of Budget, is back.
I'm back.
Yay.
Good morning. Today we are focusing on 3 connected decisions: the capital improvement plan, how the city finances our long-term assets, and then the property tax needed to support that and our high quality of services. We do want today to be interactive, so we'll answer questions as they come up, as you're recognized by the mayor. And if something requires more research, we'll capture it and follow up with a response. This is how we will run through today's discussion. We'll close out week 1's follow-up items. We'll review the CIP and then move through debt service and talk about the property tax. If we do have time, we'll go back to the department segments that we missed last week with Parks and IT, and then we'll end with the next steps. I do notice that I did not put a break in there. I suggest we take one after the capital improvement plan. But before we get into the details, here's a quick reminder of our city's fund structure. Each fund has a distinct purpose and restricted revenues, which cannot simply be moved to cover general fund expenses. So let's start with closing out the questions that were carried over from week 1. The next slides will talk about electricity, water, and the fleet assumptions that impact our operating costs. I threw this slide back in there just for reference, as this really tells the story of our general fund 27 budget. But jumping into our electricity costs, this was a specific question of how we grew by 1.5 million. You can see on the left, that's our fiscal year 26 budget. Fiscal year 26 year-to-date actuals, when we pulled this, we are already well above budget for electricity and our other costs. And then our projected is at 4.1, which leads us to the forecasted 27 budget of that 4.4 for electricity costs. We were looking at the numbers again yesterday, and we are even running a little higher than we expected. And I do want to highlight that this is not just a general fund issue. You will also see this increase in utilities and in airport. So that's kind of how we grew from electricity costs.
Is there a single?
Yeah. I think just one observation on this is 1.3 million increase in 3.1 is over 40%. So last time you had presented that our unit rate went up by 6%. That means our consumption is gone by 34%. Is that true?
That was the average over the years. This specifically, we've seen a high increase specifically this year, from what we budgeted to where we're projecting to end this year. And these are actuals, we were spending about 350,000 each month. So we know in the following 2 months what we'll be at.
Follow up?
So can you give a breakdown of this 40%? How much of it is rate increase year on year? And how much of it is the consumption increase year on year? Because normally in our personal electricity thing, 5 to 6% is what we see from one year to another year. So anything above 10% would be very high. And so that would mean still 30% of the electric consumption is ongoing. All the new building which we plan, like animal shelter and other, will not be ready before the end of the year. So that won't contribute to the rise in consumption. So I'm just surprised that 40% increase is mostly coming from the rate changes.
It's coming from changes. I will say that we ended last year high as well, but when we did the budget, we didn't see that trend. So this is a continuous trend of our increase in electricity with the rate costs.
Anyone else?
We had some follow-up questions on TMRS, and I'm going to turn the time over to our CFO, Michelle McCrimmon.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mike. I told Shelley I would take TMRS because I know there were some questions last week on it. Just like electricity, we're really right-sizing our TMRS estimate based on our estimated payroll. And so there's a calculation here on the right side that just kind of shows an example of how that's calculated. You've got all of the pay components, basically whatever's in somebody's paycheck that is eligible for a TMRS contribution. Additionally, TMRS, while the employee contributes 7% and the city matches, it's not a typical 401k plan like you would see in corporate America. This is actually a cash balance hybrid defined benefit plan. So anytime you have a defined benefit plan, you're dealing with an actuary and an actuarial calculation. So what's shown up here on the screen is a comparison of our fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 actuarially determined contribution rate that the city has to contribute. And so you see the normal cost, that is the city's existing, salaries that are earned today, what has to be contributed. The prior service is really, that's the piece that is our kind of unfunded liability from past service. That's what, based on mortality, based on interest rate assumptions, turnover, pay increases, all of that. And so that's why you see a slight jump in that because of some of those changes in that obligation. So anyway, I kind of wanted to explain that a little bit more because it seems more simple than it really is, but that's the nature of the increase. So as we've increased our assumed payroll costs and based that calculation on the actual payroll costs that we're assuming using that TMRS multiplier, that's the increase that you're seeing.
Yeah, so this is well understood and I agree with what you say. My question was not this. My question, as last time I had asked, is the dollar increase from what we paid last year to this year. It does not seem 2 million is possible with this calculation because I understand that TMRS eligible compensation is more than salary. It's sum of all that. But if you sum all that up, and I have done the calculation, it's around 80 million for the city general fund staff. Now, if you multiply that 80 million by 0.5% increase, it's only $500,000 at the most increase in the what you contributed dollar last time to what you contributed dollar this year. So are you saying you confirm that 2 million is actual dollar increase?
Yes, yeah, there's an actual model that takes our assumed payroll costs multiplied by this TMRS multiplier, and that is the amount that's budgeted. So we're more concerned with what the number should be. I mean, we're looking at the comparison to last year, but really from a budget to budget, our budget was not, last year was not presented with that same model that's calculating that actual assumed contribution based on the estimated payroll costs that are budgeted.
I mean, I believe I believe you on that, but it just seems from the numbers which you presented, and you can finance-wise, you can calculate that your TMRS eligible compensation cannot be more than 80 million, because total cost of the city payroll and benefit is 108 million, which includes the TMRS contribution, which includes the medical and everything. So 80 million multiplied by 0.5% gives you 400 to 500K. So unless you are putting an additional money into TMRS, in addition to this increase, or unless you did not pay 15.5 last year, increase of 2 million is doubtful. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. If you confirm, I believe you. I just, from the number, it doesn't show, so maybe we can take it up separately with you. Maybe sit across the table to see how this number matches up to $2 million increase year over year. That was my point.
Sure. And we can certainly take that as a follow-up. But ultimately, the dollar that's included in our proposed fiscal year 27 budget is the estimated payroll times that required TMRS multiplier. So we can kind of try and reconcile to that difference, but that's ultimately what we're proposing in our budget.
Councilmember Jacobson?
Okay, so just help me understand, I get the variable between the contribution rate. So the other variable is just the expected payroll. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so the payroll has increased enough to cause that extra above that, the 0.5%, the extra $1.5 million, is that what you're saying?
That and our budget from last year, from fiscal year 26, was not prepared in the same manner, so it was actually understated. So you kind of have two variables. You've got the increase in payroll, and then you've got us really right-sizing. And
So it's a little catch-up, there's a little catch-up in there.
Correct.
I see, okay.
When you compare, so it's not necessarily apples to apples, comparing the two budget line items for TMRS, because we were understating the budget from last year,
Follow-up?
fiscal year 26.
Yeah, no, so I understand that, and also I am not looking to the final 50,000 and 10,000. Is the proportion of it is so different? The calculated number gave you 500,000, and we had checked that in the compensation committee. It was to the tune, and suddenly it is 2 million. That is why my question was, if you confirm this is the true number, that's fine. I had another theory, which maybe either later or now I can present into the TMR, into the other slide, which is where that money is, and it's not 2 million here. If you go back,
Follow-up.
if you allow me, just go back on that. Previous slide. Previous slide, yeah. So here basically you are saying TMRS 2 million increase. There is two line items which are missing here, which actually accounts for that 2 million increase. So one is in under miscellaneous, you have budgeted 1.2 million of efficiency saving worked out, which I don't understand. If you help me understand why 1.2 million has to be worked out. That is causing the increase, which is not shown in this chart anywhere. Second is the contingency, which last year we put $200,000. We are put at $500,000. That $300,000 increase in contingency is increasing the total cost. When you're looking at the waterfall, what was budgeted last year to what is budgeted this year. So that 1.5 million is not anywhere shown here. I know it is difficult to defend that why we are putting contingency saving and efficiency saving back into the expenditure. And that's where I believe it is 500,000 for TMRS and 1.5 million for those two increases. No?
Contingency didn't increase this year. So fiscal year 26, we had 500,000. Fiscal year 27, we had 500,000. So that won't show up on this chart because it did not change.
Follow?
Okay, follow-up.
And how about the 1.2 million for efficiency saving?
For the efficiency saving, that would have been showed in the fiscal year budget. That's what we adopted.
That's built into that fiscal
Yes.
year 26 budget.
Okay.
So in the fiscal year 26, we did not put efficiency saving into a separate budget because those savings are into what you show 1.7. So let's say in all over other line item you are saving because of the good work and everything, 1.2 million. You have put back that into the expense, assuming you will not make any of the efficiency saving. Is that right?
No. So to clarify, sorry, Michelle.
No, please.
So to clarify, when we built the fiscal year 26 budget, that first line is what we adopted in October after we changed and reduced the budget by the 1.2 million. 1.1 million was actually the difference we reduced in October. So that's where we started with, was our adopted budget. So those efficiencies were taken out. They weren't TMRS efficiencies. We identified 9 positions and a few other O&M costs that we reduced from the budget. The TMRS cost is because we are this year already over budget about $1 million. That is in direct connection with the fact that we are over budget in our overtime this year and all of the other expenses. And if you remember, overtime is really connected to our public safety. So there are several different things happening. We recognized the issue and we brought it to the spring retreat as soon as we noticed it, that we were over budget in these areas. The other thing to note, and what Michelle is saying, is once we recognized it, we realized the system wasn't working for us. So we rebuilt an analytical data model to calculate these expenses. So we have a very accurate model. So we can argue that we can't do the TMRS increase of the 2 million. However, what that means is we need to reduce payroll and other expenditures with our employees, because that TMRS is directly connected to all of those salary costs.
Follow-up?
No, so definitely I'm not suggesting salary decrease. I'm not suggesting we cut the TMRS or don't contribute. Whatever we have to, I think we should. So that's taken, and if you say 2 million is correct, then I'll go with your word on that. I just want to understand then why 1.2 million of efficiency saving not achieved put into the budget miscellaneous line item in general fund.
I'm not quite sure what 1.2 million you're referring to miscellaneous.
So, I had asked a question, sorry.
Follow-up.
Are you talking about salary savings?
No, so basically, out of all the line item which you have in the different department, then at the very end, under the non-operating expenses, you have a miscellaneous expense. Last year under miscellaneous, you have the Lake Point demolition cost, which is not here this year, which is shown there. But this year, under miscellaneous, you have 2 line item, and I asked that question and reply was given back from the city that $500,000 is the contingency, emergency, and 1.2 million is the efficiency saving if they were not achieved, put as a cost there. And I want to understand why that line item has been put.
Salary
It's
savings.
salary savings.
Salary.
So that means salary saving which you will not achieve?
So salary savings would be the assumed, when we budget our salary expense, we assume 100% filled positions. That salary savings factors in the known vacancy rate that we know we're gonna have. So that's kind of that assumed piece there. So that's not efficiencies, that's just kind of we know not every single position is gonna be filled all year long.
Follow-up.
So if what you say, you put all the cost into the regular line item, then you know 1.2 will be saving which you expect to make. That should go as a negative cost because it's a saving. But there it is going as a positive cost.
No, it's negative.
You're sure of that?
Yes.
Okay, right, Maggie. I'll recheck and I'll get back to you. Currently, that 1.9 breakup, if it's negative, that line item should be negative.
Councilor Jacobson?
Okay, and I'll jump around a little bit. That's the same way that we budgeted in, was it the leaving the 6 positions empty because we budget for all of them. We budget for 100%, and then we back out the positions we don't expect to fill. Is that the same thing happening here?
So it's a combination of there are some positions we're intentionally holding for a portion of next year. And then there's just we're just naturally gonna have attrition. You're not gonna have every single position filled, so it's a combination, but that's what's reducing the budget.
So why do we budget for all the positions? Why don't we just budget for the positions that we know that we're going to fill? Why the backhanded budgeting?
We're trying to be conservative. You don't want to make an assumption that, of a certain, we're assuming a reasonable vacancy rate, and it's based on past history. It's also this year based on us intentionally holding certain positions for at least 6 months of the year. But it's really to be conservative. Yeah, but we can adjust that salary savings amount based on our history.
Councilmember
So
Single?
maybe, yeah, because I don't want to stop the presentation, in the recess you can check. I'm referring to page 87, where 1.9, part of 1.2 is the salary saving, should have gone as a negative cost, but has gone as a positive cost, because when you add up the total, it adds into the cost of 146. It doesn't subtract out.
We
You
look
you can
at
check that and
yeah.
get back to me.
Just make sure we're talking apples to apples on that.
Any other follow-up on this?
I guess one quick one.
Councilmember Benson?
See, you mentioned, go back one slide, please. Talking about the $1 million of overtime, that's delta from last year to this year, correct? Okay, any significant drivers for that, and would
Delta.
hiring help alleviate some of that?
Delta from budgeted last year to this year. The biggest driver is public safety. A lot of it has to do with the increase we did in the pay for in 2025. We didn't grow the overtime for the firefighters with connection with that, because they have that automatic overtime built into their schedule.
Anything else?
Please go ahead.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more follow-up we did want to talk about is the fleet. I wanted to highlight that fleet has two different sides to it. There's the operation and maintenance side, as well as the replacement side. So on the operation and maintenance side, our team has been working with software tracking idling and maintenance. So this has allowed them to identify small repair issues before they become bigger repair issues. And so this, along with watching idling, they have been able to maintain our budget for both repairs and gas flat in the general fund, which is impressive due to the skyrocketing cost of gas and with the skyrocketing cost of parts. The other side is the replacement of vehicles. As you know, our vehicles are what get all of our people to respond to the calls they need to respond to. So on the right is the fleet replacement schedule. You've seen the similar, but I did go further out. So in the book, we did reference that 1.8 million. That was just the original capital cost of when we purchased the vehicles. It should have been based off of that replacement cost. We have $30 million of replacement rolling stock in the city. So that would give us that 10% of 3 million. So that's the shaded area at the top. So you can see we are building ourselves to get up to that area again, and we will slightly go back down and get back up to it. The key thing I wanted to highlight with this is our replacement fund is not set up right now to be able to replace our our big fire trucks and ambulances. We do that through the bond program. So any unplanned replacements could hit this fund, and that could be draw down that fund balance very quickly. So that's kind of our follow-up on why we need that fleet replacement and what we're doing on the maintenance side to make sure that we're maintaining. The other thing I did want to highlight is fleet has gone through this year and did cut our fleet by 15 vehicles as well, in trying to make sure that we are using our vehicles at the best possible way and reassigning them to where the areas that are needed most. So.
Councilmember Single?
So, yeah, my previous comment was based on what you wrote in the book, is 1.8 is the minimum balance, which you are saying is actually 3 million because of the higher replacement cost. So that's well understood. Now, one point which is missing here is future years, what is supposed to be contribution from general fund, but I backed it out based on expenditure. So it seems we are going from 1.7 in 26 to 2.7 in 27, but we are dropping back to 2.4 next year.
Yes.
So to me, it doesn't make sense to drop in the year when you are going to do most of the purchase. I would rather have 2.4 this year because our purchase this year is only 1.2 and contribute more into the year when you are actually doing the purchase. It's your decision, but I'm just saying that was my observation based on why build or contribute 1 million more now and then drop next year. Let's have a gradual increase so that you have 1.7 to maybe 2.2 or 2.4 and then 2.7 next year.
Part of it is we are balancing the needs. Next year we have that radio replacement, and so we're focusing more on high tech next year. So we're trying to balance all of the replacement needs to have everything that we need to get everyone to where they need to be. throughout the 5-year forecast.
Councilmember Fisher?
To follow up to that, I mean, my feedback is we can be more consistent, that way the taxpayer's not seeing major jumps up and down. You mentioned there's $30 million of assets, and that's what, a 6 to 10-year lifespan?
It depends on the vehicle, yes.
So that would be looking at what, anywhere between $3 to $5 million a year replacement cost?
Yes.
Okay. So just making sure that we're more consistent with this as we move. I know there was 2 years, 24 and 25, where it dropped really low. If we can avoid that in the future and just keep it flatter, I think that'd be better for everyone.
That is exactly our plan. So that's why last time when I walked through how we calculated what we need to replace is based off of that vehicle's cost and when it will get replaced. So to flatten it out. And this year, you're just seeing, we specifically have been reducing which vehicles we replace in the last 2 years to build that fund balance back up. But we do have to purchase the vehicles before too long, so that's why you'll see them in the outer years. So.
Okay, any other follow-ups? Okay. I just wanted to mention that during the August 27th workshop, staff's going to follow up with a proposed pilot project using one-time funding to deal with the increasing feral hog threat. So,
Thank you. So now I'm going to turn it over to our city engineer to talk about our CIP.
Thanks, Lori. Good morning, everyone. So here's my presentation outline for today. First, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what public infrastructure we have and what is our investment strategy, how we prioritize our investment. And then I'm going to give you an update where we stand in terms of 2024 delivery. And at the end, I'm going to present our proposed 5-year CIP. So I showed you this slide last year. This is all the public assets we have. I'm not going to go through every single one today. Basically, you can tell we have quite a bit. We have a lot of public assets, and we put them into 2 different groups. One is intergeneral fund, such as roadways, sidewalks, buildings, and traffic, parks. And the other group is enterprise fund, like utilities and the regional airport. So with that many assets, there's a lot of investment we need to do. The reason why, because we need to be a responsible government. We need to keep our assets safe and operational. And we want to inspire reinvestment and pride. We want to attract and retain tax base. And we want people wanting to be a place people like to gather and live. And this is all about our residents, our community image and reputation. So how we do the investment, and there are so many competing factors and limited resources, how we prioritize. We use data to make risk-based investment. We have developed an asset management model across very different asset groups. This is an example for water lines, how we prioritize water line replacement. All the asset management models start with condition assessments. So we basically analyze the condition of each single water line in our entire distribution system based on their age, material, and the service, expected service life and break history, maintenance history. So then the model will calculate it where most likely a water line is going to break. And also, what's the most consequences if the water line break? So basically, it's the probability of a failure and the consequences of failure. Based on those information, there's a fancy, complete formula we use to calculate a risk. So we have risk score for every single piece water line in our system, and then we color code it. Red means we need immediate attention, need immediate rehab replacement. And orange is in critical condition, yellow is fair condition, green is good. So we prioritize our waterline replacement program according to this data, this model every year. So it is truly data-driven decision-making and risk-based, because the waterline serving hospital will have higher impact. That built into this model as well. And this model also allows us to play what ifs. So if we have additional funding, more funding, and how quickly we can turn the red into green, right? If we don't have enough money, how quickly the green will turn to yellow and finally go to red. So it's pretty good model. And here's another example for street rehab reconstruction. And because streets, you can see it, right? We can do physical inspection, in the field. So the model used LiDAR to scan all the streets in Sugar Land. And based on the condition we assign, we call pavement condition index, PCI score. And the good news is majority of the city Sugar Land streets in good condition comparing to city Houston, right? So the majority agree. But if you zoom in, you do see some reds and orange and yellow, right? And we prioritize our streets rehab replacement according to this model output. And one interesting thing about pavement, if you look at this curve, it's quite interesting. If you have a brand new street, it's good for 10, 15 years, very good. And then you see the sharp decline. So what that means is that if we need to do preventive maintenance, to do resurfacing, fix the potholes, reseal the joints, do all that preventive maintenance, and we can level up the curve to reduce the capital cost for full replacement. And because full replacement costs probably 20 times more than preventive maintenance. What that tells us is that to keep a healthy O&M budget for all our assets to do the preventive maintenance is very, very important. That can reduce our costs in the future for big capital expenditures.
Councilor Besser?
Are we using these same models for the major thoroughfares, or are we sharing this data with our partners like TxDOT and whoever else? A lot of times it's the bigger roads that see the most damage and wear.
Right.
And I know it's not our responsibility, but obviously we get the complaints from the residents.
We did share this model with Fulton County, with their different precincts, especially 4 and precinct 3.
Excuse me, Jesse, could you speak louder? They can't hear you in the chamber.
Oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'll speak louder. I got softer voice. I'm sorry.
Speak loud, project.
Yeah, okay, I'll go loud. We share this model with Fulton County, and we haven't shared with TxDOT. We can.
We don't care.
Well, that's the point, is we need to get them to care. Good luck.
To add to that, Jesse, when we do that scanning, we do not scan state assets. We scan our infrastructure that we're responsible for maintaining, because there is a cost per mile when we go to do that scanning. So we do communicate with TxDOT and other agencies when there is an issue, but as far as that, we do not go and actually scan that infrastructure, because that's not our infrastructure.
Follow up.
What would that cost us to, just for awareness, to scan those?
We can get you a number on that.
Okay.
Okay,
For the
follow-up.
clarification, Kirk. All right. Okay, continue. I almost forgot to mention, we got really good news last week from an international organization. It's called Institute of Asset Management, IAM. And they notified us our asset management program actually got selected as a top 4 finalist for their entire North America 2026 Digital Innovation Award.
Congratulations.
It's a big recognition because we are the only municipality up there, top 4, against some huge organizations. There's one named Max Power, and they're based in Canada. I checked them out online. They are multiple billion-dollar agencies. Their annual revenue is like 2.2 or 2.5 million, 2.2 or 2.5 billion US dollars. So the competition is going to be huge, but we are excited, and they are going to announce the final winner on October 6th. Congratulations. All right, so in addition to use data, when we prioritize our investment, we also focus on community impact. We listen to our residents' feedback. We conduct surveys from, satisfaction survey and sentiment survey before we pull that 2024 GEO bond together. And obviously, you know our residents' top priorities. They want our city council to prioritize investment in those categories. No surprise: mobility, public safety, drainage, and traffic. So based on the data and based on the public input, we put together that 2024 $350 million GEO bond. and they all passed decisively by our voters. What does that tell us? That tells us our investment strategy align pretty well with our residents' priorities. So this is our 5-year Jiuban delivery plan, and we are already 2 years into it. Time really flies. So I'm going to show you what the status. Basically show you the report card to see how we're doing and where we stand. All right, we got a lot of projects and moving really, I will try to move quick, but stop me if you want to ask any questions. So the public safety category, you can tell we front-loaded all public safety projects. We budgeted all in FY25, and we're making pretty good progress on all of them. The first one is Austin.
Jesse, remember to speak a little bit louder.
Louder again? Okay. I'm pretty much on top of my voice already. Okay. For Austin Parkway fuel station rehab, we are in the construction already. And fire apparatus replacement and rebuild. We have engine 6 in service, and new ladder 7 will be delivered in August, and medic unit remount is under fabrication. Fire station expansion rebuild, and fire department finished a coverage plan, the staffing plan already. We currently doing evaluation for a location for new fire station number 2, and start design on those as well. In public safety facility rehab, all the fire alarms completed for all stations, and roof rehab for fire station 1 and 4 are completed. And the generator updates for fire stations 3 and 4 also near completion. Public safety training facility phase 3, we completed a site master plan already. We are in the design, doing first round of cost estimate. And renovation existing PD court and the new PD headquarters, we are completing design in this November. So good progress there. And SWAT vehicle, SWAT command vehicle, all vehicles are ordered, currently under fabrication. All right, move to mobility projects. We have a long list of mobility projects. If you see 1 star after number, that means 50% of the cost will be funded by Fort County Mobility Project. If you see 2 stars, that means based on the interlocal agreement we have with Fort County, they upfronted 100% design, and we're going to reimburse them half of that in the later years. So we made quite big progress on mobility projects as well. The first one is Austin Parkway, a Commonwealth intersection improvements. We open bids next Thursday. To expedite this project, we did something different. We actually, as an owner, we purchased the traffic poles because that's considered long lead item. It takes like 4 or 6 months to really get them. So we already placed the order. So we can expedite the process. Once we select the contractor, we can hand them the poles. And Austin Parkway, reconstruction phase 1 to phase 2, currently in the design. And Bernie Road sidewalk widening and stadium intersection improvements, we are at 60% design, 6% PER. We are going to host a public meeting next month. I believe we already issued FII to City Council for that event. And Dulles Avenue sidewalk and a pedestrian bridge, we are in the early stage of design because we won't have construction dollar until FY30. Lexington phase 1, currently at 40% design, and phase 2, we are doing some scope evaluation because they have some overlap with Sugarland Trail phase 2. And then major street rehab. In 25, we completed Commerce Green. In 26, we completed Industrial Boulevard north of West Airport. And we currently working on phase 2 of Just Purtle and Industrial. So make good progress on the street rehab as well. So more mobility projects. Redstone Street rehab, panel replacement. We completed the east and west Hillary Circle. And sidewalk program rehab. Kirk touched on this last week. We made big progress. We reduced the backload significantly. Strategic traffic flow. This is designed for two intersections to put in the new traffic signal. One is at Derry Ashford, Julie River. We complete the design. The other one is we are working on the design for Westcott at Wallingford, close to the Costco area. Sweetwater Phase 1 and Phase 2 currently at 30% design.
Now, is that going to include a sidewalk on Sweetwater between Greystone at Colleen Meadows Elementary and Elkins at Clements that's been missing all this time?
I don't think it's included in the reconstruction. The reconstruction project here is from Palm Royal to Town Center and Austin Parkway. So we're going to build a 10 feet wide side path along the Sweetwater. For the sidewalk, Kirk, do you have any information on the sidewalk replacement in the Commonwealth area?
Yeah, because that's in between Palm Royale and Town Center is
Are you talking about the
the missing sidewalk on, Sweetwater.
opposite of Clements High School?
It's on Sweetwater on the same side as Clements, between Elkins and Greystone. There's no sidewalk on that side, and a former council member Schiff's wife got killed there at Sweetwater and Greystone, and another person's got killed there because they're having to cross Sweetwater because there was no sidewalk there. We have to cross back, and so. Yeah, I was just wondering when we do the reconstruction, if we're going to include put a sidewalk in, or if that's under your sidewalk program, as not really rehabilitation, replacement, because I haven't been there before, but if we're going to include that there, because that's something we've been trying to get for years now.
There is a pedestrian bridge on the opposite side. There's not one on the same side as Clements High School. We
Yeah.
can look at that and get you a follow-up to that.
'Cause I know we applied for funding for safe routes to school, but hadn't gotten that, for that sidewalk. But that's still important. It's a really important, it's not only a safety issue, it's also a mobility issue. Because if somebody's trying to cross the street, then you have to shut down the traffic on Sweetwater and then shut it down again when they cross back.
We'll take a look at that and get you an answer.
We are going to investigate that. All right. Traffic signal rehab, we are doing the design at State Highway 6, US 59, and US 59, and State Highway 6999. William Trace reconstruction, we currently working on the 60% design. All right, drainage. Austin Parkway West, we are in the design. In Chatham at McAllister, we are about 60% design. In Hillstone drainage modification, we need to do some modeling work on this project and quite a bit coordination with Lake 2, and that's completed. We are currently in the design. State Highway 6, Book Street, and drainage modification, we are at about 40% design. And then we have Sugar Lakes inlet replacement. We did design in-house. We completed the design, currently working on the big package. And Windmill drainage modification, we are completing 100% design. So the project will build soon. All right, moving on the public service building, we have quite a bit of work completed under this project, such as exterior state wall, stairwell at Public Works is replaced, and electrical distribution study at several buildings is ongoing. We're also doing the building envelope assessment at Public Works building, City Hall Annex. It's a long list of projects, all in this one project. And animal shelter. One of our favorite project, we are in the permitting process, and we plan to bid it out by the end of this month. All right. That's an update for 2024 GEO bond. And I'm going to discuss our proposed FY27 to FY31 CIP projects. And I'm not going to cover any enterprise fund projects such as utility, airport, and those will be covered, present to you next Thursday. Okay, so we start with public safety and municipal projects. I'm presenting all 5 years, but with a focus on FY27, because those are the dollars we are going to ask you to appropriate in this budget cycle. And all years, 28 beyond is for planning purpose. So under the public safety and municipal facility, we have fire apparatus replacement. You saw that we already funded some in FY25-26. This is a continuation for fire department according to their replacement schedule. So FY27 proposed $2.3 million. Fire station expansion rebuild, that's the construction dollar scheduled for FY28, including a new fire station number 2. Public safety, facility rehab, this is for all the fire stations, keep doing the corrective maintenance. It's an annual program. Public safety, facility rehab for police, this is a dollar budgeted for existing PD building for foundation repairs. And next one is the renovation existing PD and new PD headquarters, $37 million FY27 for the construction of the new PD headquarters. And in 29, we're going to renovate existing PD building, so the entire first floor will be occupied by the courts. They do need that space. After the new building is built, so majority of police can move to the new building. We got space for remainder police programs and for courts in the existing building. Field maintenance building facility design FY28, construction FY30. This is to build a maintenance facility for quite a few departments, to use it. Some we currently don't have any space for maintenance repairs. Some of the repairs are done, they call tailgate at the parking lot. So we need a building for our staff. LED.
For the first line, for the fire apparatus, that's the equipment, correct?
Yes.
What's the life of the equipment versus the length of debt servicing for it?
I think with more than 10 years, we can put it into a debt service fund.
The debt matches the age of the vehicle. So a fire truck will last 20 years, so that's why we can issue the bonds for it.
Thank you.
10 years typically in front service and then 10 years in reserve.
But when we issue debt, it's kind of it encompasses all of the assets we issue debt for, so it kind of averages out. So we may build a 50-year building and have a 15, 20-year asset, so we look at kind of the average of that with our debt issuance.
All right, LED conversion. Herc talked about this last week, and it's funded by SLDC, $1 million. FY27. Public service building rehab. This is for all the public service buildings, including City Hall and other buildings, to do preventive corrective maintenance. All right, mobility. We got a long list. We got 3 slides. So I talked majority of them already because we started design in FY25 already. So I'm going to go over details. And mainly it's a construction dollar for the projects currently in the design in FY27. And the construction dollar for some other projects in the out years. This is a duplicate, sorry. And more mobility projects. So this is the second slide of the mobility projects, continuation of our major street rehab. And I want to point out $1.5 million is funded by SLDC, and 1.1 in FY27 is from GO1. And residential street rehab, 1.1, we continue our program based on the asset management program and the pothole data we collected, so we prioritize for those 2 projects. And Settlers Way reconstruction, we start design in FY28, construction 29. Continue our sidewalk reinvestment replacement program. And the strategic traffic flow, those are construction dollars for the signal we put in the design at the 2 locations.
Councilor Bonner?
Yes.
A question about the sidewalk we have. We have a history of being way behind. We've done a good job of getting caught up, but then I see in FY30 that we dropped that dollar down to just $700,000. Is that an indication that we're all caught up, or is that an indication that we're gonna fall behind again?
I don't think we will be caught up on
Nor
everything.
do I.
Yeah, and that we need more money. Hopefully in next June bond, we can have, a program to continue our sidewalk replacement.
I thought we had $10 million total in that Proposition B for sidewalks.
Yes.
And this shows 6.7.
We already spent
Oh,
some
it is,
in
okay.
25, 26. That's how we cut down the backlog.
Councilmember Singh?
Within that bond, is it possible to, if we have savings somewhere else, to allocate more money for the sidewalk? Does the law allow us to shuffle between those?
It depends.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It really depends on the specific bonds that are left over, what the proceeds were issued for. But we have such a variety of projects included in each of the bond issues, we likely have some flexibility. But we're looking at that now, actually.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, next slide. So more mobility. And one thing I want to point out is Waiting Trees construction is scheduled FY27. And another one is the landscape replacement is all funded by SLDC. Drainage. And we're going to start design for a last drainage project on this 24 geobond, which is Austin Parkway, west drainage modification and construction proposed for FY28. And Plantation Bend drainage, about $300,000 from the geobond and $1 million from the federal grant through EPA. And we are going to do construction at Chatham and McAllister in FY28. And State Highway 6 construction in 28 as well. And at last, we do a citywide drainage study to identify any other areas we need to keep doing, keep improving on drainage and preparing for the next U-bound.
Councilor Watley?
Thank you.
Jesse, I just want to clarify, we've done a lot of drainage projects, a lot of drainage, especially since our last hurricanes and our problems with rain. So I would assume at this point, especially by 30 when we do the study, do you believe, and I'm not going to hold you to this too much, that we're caught up with in-home drainage problems or in-home flooding? That was our point in spending all this money, so do you think we're there?
I think we're pretty close. That's an excellent point. City really invested a whole lot in drainage, especially after Harvey, because that was a priority for our residents. Spent millions of dollars. I think we fixed the majority, vast majority area. Maybe some small area left, but vast majority we already, did the improvements.
Your follow-up?
Thank you.
So that's why I'm looking at 30 as doing that study in FY30. Do we need to move that study up, or are we just waiting to finish all of our drainage projects before we do that study to make sure we've completed everything we need to do?
Yes, we want to finish the improvement themselves first.
Okay.
With the dollar amount, making sure we have enough money to do all the construction, and then see if we need a study in FY30. If we do, and if we don't have enough money, we might be able to borrow the study money to put into construction.
Or we get a flood?
Yeah, and we get a grant, yeah.
Yeah, because we had money in the 2019 bond for drainage, quite a bit of money there too. So hopefully we should be pretty close after the second bond issue.
Great, thank you. All right. Parks project, Ganaway Lake Phase 1. This is 100% funded by Fort Bend County. And we are going to start fairly quick. Park rehab, and it's all funded by SL4B. This is the preventive maintenance for all our parks, and our parks team has a prioritized list. And the last one is the fund grant. It's Great Homes, and $300,000 per year is all funded by SL4B. So this is a summary of the funding source for all of our 27 project, CIP projects. You can tell majority is from the city, about $71.8 million. And DC SL4B fund $5 million. And Fort County contributed about $22.2 million. And then we have $1 million grant from EPA. So total adds up, exclude enterprise fund, is $500 million. So for our GEO bond, for FY27, we need about $71.8 million. For the rest of the year, we need approximately $60 million taken given to really complete our obligation, to complete our bond program. So just want to give you a summary of all 5-year CIP, including all funds, the size, the scale of our CIP program in the next 5 years. So for FY27, it's about $138.8 million, and over 5 years, it's about $622 million. All right, in addition to talk.
Another signal?
The previous slide, for the surface water, I see suddenly big number in financial year 31. What is that?
It's the second phase surface water conversion requirement by Fort Subsidence District. We need to expand our surface water treatment plant to convert from groundwater to surface water from 30% to 60%. And Katie will talk more next Thursday. So it's a mandate from Fort Subsidence District.
Unfunded.
It's an unfunded mandate, and was originally supposed to take place in fiscal year 2025, but we were successfully able to get it pushed back to fiscal year 30, and then we have some credits that can allow us to, not do this till fiscal year 31, but we feel like it's going to be doubtful that we can get it pushed back any later than fiscal year 30, based on how things went with the Fort Subsidence District. Yeah, follow up.
What would be the potential funding source, assuming we have to do? This is not in the GEO bond, is that right?
It's utility.
It's the utilities.
Utility rates, yeah. We
So
have been, go ahead, yeah.
I just want to add, we started about 4 years ago incrementally raising the rates to set aside funding so that when that did come around, we didn't have this huge jump in cost. So you'll see in the fund summary for the utilities that they are growing their fund balance that is designed to offset that big jump right there.
Thank you.
But it'll be a combination of that plus revenue bonds.
All right. In addition to talk all the numbers, I want to take the opportunity to highlight some efforts city staff made to save our residents money. Grant and loan application. In the past 5 years, we successfully secured about $198 million. And of that, 150 is, we call free money. It's grant and other agencies' contributions. And $48 million is zero interest 30-year loan. If you assume 3% interest just for that loan over 30 years, the interest saving is above $20 million already. So it's a good win for us. And I'm proud to say we did all grant application in-house, with a big team working together, not only from engineering, from finance, budget, and legal, and interlocal government relations, all helped, and we're pretty successful. And if you look at other agencies, other municipalities, they all hire, a lot of them hire consultants to do those grant applications because it's a lot of work and it's actual effort. And
Councilor Singleton?
I really want to appreciate you and everybody else involved because this is real benefit to the residents here. Otherwise, this would have to go from either CIP or MNO. So very well done.
thank you. And we continue our effort this year. We already submitted $32 million TIP grant through HGAC. For City Council, serve on HGA committee, boards, please advocate for us. So here are some example projects included in the application. One is Imperial Historical District Community Connector. We propose to build a connection between Imperial over 98 and a railroad park for great separation connection so people can walk back across. And the second one is Brazos River pedestrian and bicycle bridge, standalone bridge connecting Greenwood River Park to this side of town. And I remember when TxDOT started bridge work, we have residents from those two communities ask TxDOT, can they added a bike lane, pedestrian lane over the bridge so they can come to this side? Of course, TxDOT said no. And next project is New Territory Trail. This is the proposed trail along Center Point Eastman from just behind the Lowe's to all the way to State Highway 99. So those are some examples in the application we submitted already. And this year, we became a what called FTA recipient, Federal Transit Agency administration. So that opened doors for us for non-competitive and competitive grants. We currently working with them, trying to secure some money to support our on-demand services after the pilot. And Mayor, to your point, we are also looking into safe street for all, including safe connection for, what's it called? Safe school, safe.
Well, there's safe routes to school.
Safe route to school, sorry, safe route to school. So all included in this, and working with CMAQ as well. All right, more efforts try to save our residents' dollar. This past year, we take on additional responsibilities to perform internal public services, professional services, and the construction. The first project I want to highlight is Imperial Sewer, sanitary sewer connection. And we did all in-house. This is a not small wastewater line. It's an 8-inch commercial grade, over 1,100 meter feet. And engineering staff did the design in-house, and our public works and utility staff did the construction. And the engineering inspectors performed the inspection. So big teamwork is almost done. The connection is already made. The building, the Children's Museum, our visitor center, they can stop, pump in the hall pretty quick. So this is a really good project, and we did all in-house, saved our residents approximately at least a $250,000. And the second one is pickleball court. We worked with Parks on the design. Public Works did some partial construction, and it turned out really nice. And during the ribbon cutting event, I believe many residents came out join you for the ribbon cutting. It was really fun. And Sugar Lakes inlet replacement, we did in-house design. This is a cut sheet from all the design drawings. It saved the city approximately $100,000, and we are going to bid out the projects pretty soon. Mortgage repair, we did in-house design, saved about $25,000. Citywide traffic modeling, I want to talk a little bit more about this because I'm really proud about the work our staff did. Jason Wong took the lead, built this model. We have about 98 intersections, signalized intersections. We have data. We collect data on those intersections through Public Works Operation Group. But we also have 77 non-signalized intersections. And we have only 2 people in the traffic engineering group, Jason and Yusri. The 2 of them collected data at all 77 intersections in-house. That's a lot of effort. With combining the data from Public Works, they built a model, citywide traffic model, covering 175 intersections, and the model is done. With that model, we not only can help, do our capital project, do the traffic analysis for our own capital projects, or investigate our residents' concerns. We can also offer a TIA services to our developers. So normally, when developers come into the city, a lot of them are required to do a TIA study, and they hire consultants, pay quite a bit of money. And sometimes, their analysis not really aligned, the assumption they made not really aligned with our standards. So we make comments, send it to them, and they comment back on our comments, back and forth. Takes quite a bit of time. If we do the TIA for them, we charge $10,000 per TIA. We have a revenue source for the city. And the review time will be 0 because we do the TIA. There's no review time. It will be fast track. It will be win-win for both. Save time for us and the developers. provide better services. And with those efforts, we saving the city at least $400,000, including the data collection part. Now, the last but not the least, the sidewalk tracker. So we did this in-house, led by Paula in engineering. She worked with Herc's group, the traffic, the street division. They transformed how we track sidewalk replacement. They developed this app. So when our residents calls, we have a 2311 generate a ticket and send it to Public Works. And our inspectors go out to the inspection, right? They open this app on their phone or their tablet. When they walk on the sidewalk, and they, this app draw a line in real time. For the length, they are doing the inspection. So they can fill all the inspection notes right there. Like, is it a trip hazard? What category they should fall into, and all the notes. And is it caused by a tree? And they can take photos and upload to the app. So it's GIS-based, geocoded, so it's real time. And we also have a dashboard to show our inspectors how many sidewalk already completed inspection, how many upcoming, what's their budget look like, all that good information showing in a dashboard. And remember the asset management program I talk about? So this will help build that asset layer for sidewalk. When they do the inspection, they're also doing condition assessment and draw a line in the GIS. So we building that layer for sidewalks as well. So hopefully in the future, when we have sufficient funding, we not only working on the backlogs, we can proactively doing sidewalk repairs based on data. So that's our goal. And we also have a,
Councilor Watley.
I'm so excited about this, and we were at an HOA meeting Monday night, and we talked about sidewalks, because we always talk about sidewalks at HOA meetings. Is this a forward-facing app that residents can use?
yes, I was going to say. Thank you. So this is a dashboard, it's public facing. So our residents can open the app, download the app, or go to the website. They can search by either their address or the ticket number they got from 311 when they called, where we stand. Is it completed, or we'll be there in 2 months? So they can search all that information. Once it's completed, they can also see how much money we spend to fix their sidewalks. So that's very transparent how we spend taxpayers' money. And hopefully that can reduce the cost to you, can reduce cost to 311 call center. So become more efficient. So this app alone will save our inspector at least 10 hours per week. So with this, our staff really went above beyond. This is all above their normal responsibilities. They're doing a lot of work, managing projects, $350 million bonds, right? Doing all the repairs, doing all the works. This is truly went above beyond. With this collective effort, we save our city more than $1.1 million.
Then also got the Sugarland Trail that we broke ground on recently. That was 100% funded by a federal grant with the local match provided by Fort Bend County from its mobility bond. And that's going to be, 3.5 mile, 10-foot wide trail from 90 down to Lexington, including a cross under 59. And so that was done without any cost to Sugarland residents, no Sugarland property taxes or sales tax dollars being used on that. So that's a really great job on that too. So appreciate all the work staff is doing to save residents dollars and get grant funding and do things internally where we can. So thank you.
Thank you. This is truly our culture. I'm really proud to be part of it. Our staff really went above beyond, trying to provide exceptional services and meanwhile save our residents money wherever possible, as much as possible. So,
Councilman Mondahar.
Phenomenal job, great job. But I want to highlight the fact that, and this goes back to the award that you said that we were in the running for. The city does a phenomenal job of utilizing data to make all of our decisions. And probably the most overused word in the world in the last couple of years is transparency. I get so sick and tired of hearing that word. But the use of data really allows us to be as transparent as possible. You can't be any more transparent than the data. And so it accomplishes two things for us. It allows us to make better, more informed decisions, and it allows us to be more transparent to our citizens. So great job.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jesse? Okay, Mike?
You know, Jesse's managing the largest CIP we've ever had, most projects we've ever had. We've never received grant funding and interagency funding like this, on top of this type of stuff. And then you've also, how many employees have you given up over the last couple of years?
This year I gave up one.
Okay.
One engineer position.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just like all of this and trying to, within the shop, and it's created a special culture. So thank you very much.
So, okay, great job. So now we're going to take a 10-minute break, and so we will be back at 8:55, and then Shalay will be talking about debt service then.
Morning, guys.
I know, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Thank
you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I know, my dad's,
Yes.
bird boils, they had to get those.
Okay, so now we have Shalane Stedman, Director of Budget, who is going to do our debt service fund. Why do you, so thank you.
Who's up?
And we ended on a great note of all of these grants that we're seeking for the city. And that doesn't just stop with our capital improvement projects. I want to just highlight that there's several other grants that we've submitted applications for, including like we talked about last week for the fire SCBA here. It's about $2 million. So, and we are working hard to find any way that we can help support all of our services through other means as well. So now let's turn into our debt service section. This connects our debt strategy to the CIP. Tax-backed bonds spread the cost of living long-lived infrastructure across the residents who benefit from it. I want to highlight this debt service fund is specifically for our tax debt bonds, backed bonds. We keep the different bond issuances with where they're getting paid from. So we keep the debt service fund for those that are backed by our taxes. You'll find the utility debt in the utility section because they're backed by utility revenues, and the same with airport because they're backed by airport revenues. We don't put them all in one fund because we want to make sure that we're very consistent on how we are paying for those issuances. They're very distinct, and that's how the bond council reviews it, and also when we get our ratings, that's how they review it as well. So the debt service fund is supported by our INS tax rate. The important point is that these revenues are restricted to principal and debt and are calculated annually to meet our obligations. I want to highlight the benefits of using debt versus cash. There's three main reasons: fairness across generations, perseverance of cash reserves, and a smoother tax rate impact. The new police headquarters that Jesse just talked about is a good example. It will serve the community for decades. So debt allows both today's residents and future residents who will benefit from it share those costs. The debt service fund is funded primarily by property taxes at that 78.9%. Transfers do come in to cover from utilities to cover a small portion of the MUD debt, and from the PID, which comes from. Okay, Councilman Jacobson.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. So the COs that are back, that's that $50 million for Imperial, right?
Yes.
That's actually being paid out of sales taxes.
It is being paid by sales tax.
Which are paid by a lot of non-residents.
Yes. It's all of those that come in and shop in Sugarland. We have to bring it in at least a couple times today, right?
Thank you.
But yes, so it is backed by property tax, but it is fully paid off by our sales tax. At the high level, fiscal year 27 debt service expenditures totaled $42.5 million. And you will notice that fiscal year 26 was slightly higher. This was because even though we're issuing more debt in the last year, and this was because last year included a defeasance, which allowed us to pay off some debt a little earlier. And we review that calculation every year to see if it makes sense each year.
Councilman Jackson.
And just for the general public, defeasance is not the same as malfeasance. Defeasance is a good thing?
Yes.
Okay.
It just means we pay off debt earlier than we expected the last years of the debt. Thank you for.
Thank you. Good morning.
This chart shows the city's outstanding bonds and illustrates our debt policy. We target level principal or declining repayment schedules and aim to retire at least 50% of the total principal within the first half of the maturity schedule. This approach reduces interest costs, keeps debt service trending down, and creates capacity to layer in future bond packages without spiking the INS rate. So this blue and the gold combined is the dark blue of this next slide. So you can see the bond issuance of that $350 million bond that we issued. You can see that being played out in the outer years as we add that debt for all of those capital projects that Jesse just walked through in our 5-year CIP plan.
Councilmember Batchor?
So from slide 45 to 46, would you say we had about, I'm looking at the blue part of the principal, 200+ million in debt in the first one, and then what does it jump up to with this slide?
So, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand your
I
question.
was asking about the total debt number. Where would you put it at?
The total debt, this is just the payments. It's not the total debt issued. This will include the debt and the interest payment. The total debt for GEO issuance at right now, 250.
And then when it jumps up with the blue, what does it jump up to?
So those, once again, that's the new payment for the debt we're issuing. So we're issuing another 70 million this year, and then as Jesse talked about, 60 million in the following year. We are not paying off that whole 70 million. It is the payment for the principal and the interest. So that's those new payments as we add in the debt, and then you can see it will come down as further along we go.
Councilmember Watley?
Yes, just to be clear, and we don't issue $350 million worth of debt just because that's the bond. We issue it as it's implemented.
Yes.
Can you make that clear?
Yes. So Jesse talked about it in that 5-year plan. So all of those projects are very well planned out for timing and when it makes sense when we have the capacity. Specifically, public safety was front-loaded because that was the #1 priority. So it's all planned out so that when we issue the debt, we are ready to work on that project.
Follow-up.
And in reference to that, debt service is also aligned with that issuance. So if we see a tax increase for the bonds that are issued at the time, it's aligned with that debt service.
Yes. Yes, the INS rate, which we'll talk about later, is specifically connected to these issuances.
Keep it balanced.
You can only use the INS portion of the rate to pay off bond debt.
Councilmember Batchor?
Forward looking, can we get a projected sinking tax rate as we're expecting these values to go up? I don't know, it takes some property tax assumptions, but valuation
It
assumptions.
takes the valuation assumptions, that's very, yes.
Councilmember Single?
I was going to say that going from 40 to 50, which is 10 million increase, based on the current would be possibly 5% increase if the property tax stays same. Of course, if the property tax goes up, then we don't have to increase.
That's a lot of assumptions.
Yes, there is a lot of assumptions, and I will say, when we first issued the $50 million bond that went to the voters for voter approval, that had estimates in there that our evaluations would continue to grow. And as you'll see, they have not. So it will increase the tax rate on that portion in the outer years.
Anything else on this slide?
It's also important to connect our affordability to our debt policy. Net bonded debt is increasing as expected following the voter approval of the $350 million GEO bond. And I know Mr. Goodrum talked about this, but we have never issued a bond package as big as that before. But this was specifically tied to all of those priorities. And as Jesse mentioned, this was voted by the voters to do all of these things in our bond package. But both our debt per capita and debt as shared asset value remain within city policy limits. And I do want to highlight, as we talked about, Imperial is funded through our sales tax dollars. It is backed by property tax, but fully funded by sales tax. So if we took that out of the calculation, we would be back at 1.25 for this. Also, the 1.75% is our city policy. That is lower than we see other cities already with their debt per capita.
Councilmember Batchor?
So seeing as we've doubled the debt in the last 5 years, roughly, do you see it as being a problem, or could we essentially exceed that 1.75 in the future?
We are watching it very closely. We do get close as we continue to issue the debt.
What changes would, I guess, that make on us for financial policy in the future?
As you can see, we build the bond so that it's trending downward. And so we get close to it 1 year and then we come right back down. So our population has remained relatively flat. And so if you want to keep this flat, then we would just have to issue less debt, which means we wouldn't be able to complete the projects we just talked about and that were included in that bond package.
Councilmember Watley?
Aren't we mandated to complete the projects that the voters voted for?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I would just say as a council, as trustees, you have a responsibility to implement them, but are you required to legally? No, I do not believe that you are, but.
And if there's a dramatic change in circumstances or something, because there was one in like 2013, we're going to do a kayak thing at Memorial Park, and then it turned out to be in a flood zone. So we held off on, we didn't do that particular one. So if it's extenuating circumstances or something, but generally, yes.
Once again, I want to highlight, when we do get close, we come right back down, and so that's something we always watch with our how we're trending. So this is our updated debt service fund forecast. You can see that we do have some planned drawdowns of the fund. This is planned so that we can keep our INS rate lower and more level. And this was planned within when we issued the $350 million bond. That is the debt service fund. Our next debt service fund is our taxable fund. This is taxable debt associated with Smart Financial Planner. This obligation is supported by lease payments rather than by property taxes. So one of the sources of Smart Financial, like I mentioned, is taxable COs for the $27 million issued in 2014.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jacobson?
could you explain the difference between what we've been talking about and taxable COs? You mean taxable to the bond purchasers, right?
Yes.
Okay, would you explain that just briefly, please?
So the other, our normal debt service is backed by property tax. We don't have to pay taxes on it. We don't have to pay any extra fees, if you will, on it because it's backed by that property tax. This is used for more of an enterprise type use, and so it is connected with taxable debt service that has to be paid each year. So it, like I said, it is not backed by property tax. It is backed by revenue associated with the lease, because Smart Financial is enterprise with that. Payments will be made monthly according to the terms of the 30-year lease. So the lease is the length of the debt issuance as well. So fiscal year 27 revenues and interest.
One quick question on that. When do we expect the debt service reserve to be met? Do we have an idea?
Yes, it will be met in fiscal year 2032. That was a goal to reach the final 4 years of debt payments. And it, like I said, fiscal year 2032, and it's about 6.3 million is that goal.
And I guess it got pushed back to 2032 because there was during COVID. Yeah.
The debt does end in 2047. But this long-range forecast shows steady positive net income because we are growing enough to reach that. Getting into our next topic is property tax. This connects our taxable values, exemptions, and M&O rate and INS rate to the services and the capital plan we discussed today. So as a reminder, why is property tax important? It's a stable base for essential services and long-term planning. This is essentially important for more volatile revenues such as sales tax. This allows us to have that consistent base for those long-term forecasts. The key point here is our general fund property tax revenue. If we spent every dollar we receive from property tax, it would only cover 76% of public safety. And while public safety is our #1 priority, we also need to fund parks, streets, and other core services. As a reminder, there are 3 entities at work when we talk about property tax. The appraisal district determines values. The tax assessor collector handles billing and collection, and also does our calculation for TNT, truth in taxation. And the city sets the tax rate. As we review the section, I'll answer the key questions behind the property tax calculation. So starting off, what is the 2026 certified tax roll? The taxable value to the city is at $21.5 billion. This shows our tax roll compared to last year. Slight residential growth is offset by commercial decline. The dissolution of TERS 1 returns values to the city's roll, which lifts our net tax growth to the 1.3%. This slide shows the bridge from market values to taxable value. Appraisal caps, exemptions, and other adjustments reduce the amount on which the city can levy tax. So you can see the market value is that top line on the top. The assessed value is that orange line, and the green line is what we actually can tax on.
Mayor,
Councilman Watley?
can you go back to the last slide, please? Thank you. So normally, in the last 5 years, 4 years, we've seen in that last line where it says 1.3, what have we seen, 3%?
It has been higher than that. It's been about 4.6%.
So this is the second
Got a
year
slide
in a
on it
row
that-
we've seen it, I'm sorry, follow up.
Yeah, follow up.
So this is the second year in a row we've seen it come down and be either flat or almost flat, correct?
Yes.
This is new to us.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear that that's not common, and this is not something we've seen.
No, this slide actually shows that growth in the past years, and then the last 2 years have flattened.
Okay.
I think last year wasn't it 2.3 or 2.5% or something? Yeah. And then 1.3.
And you'll see actually the market values went down last year and they came back up this year, where our taxable values went up last year and flattened this year.
And how much impact did the change to the state constitution have where the exemption went from 250,000 up to 100?
I'm gonna talk about those exemptions in 2 slides.
So many parts.
But just jumping to here, this shows another how our commercial and residential have grown comparatively. Together, it produces much lower growth than the city has typically experienced, like we talked about. This, I know, is a lot of numbers, but the key point here is that 65% decrease in our homestead cap, which means the taxable values that we're seeing that growth is more connected to previous growth in the market value rather than this year's growth. And then the higher personal property exemption also removed about $213 million from the taxable basis, with an estimated levy impact of approximately $800,000. So another way of comparing it is how our new property values compare to our new exemptions. So in 2022, new values substantially exceeded exemption losses. This year, the relationship is reversed. Exemptions grew by about $265 million compared to the roughly $52 million in new development. So that played a big impact. And then this just kind of highlights where our exemptions are. So diving deeper, we have more than 17 property tax exemptions. The largest impact comes from exempt properties, followed closely by the city's homestead and over 65 exemptions. The light blue one right here in the corner, that's the new one that was passed last year. That changed that from 25 2,500 to, yes, thank you. There's a lot of numbers. And then we'll dive deep into our top exemptions in these next slides. So you can see our growth in exempt properties. Hospitals, schools, churches, and other exempt entities can add community and economic value. I do want to highlight that. It's one of the great reasons people love Sugar Land is our great schools, close to the hospitals, but they do contribute no property tax to the city. In total, it represents about 11% of the values of the city. And which, based off my very limited research, that's higher than most cities have exempt properties. The revenue impact of the 65 exemption. Over 10 years, the exemption count and exempted value have both more than doubled. The fiscal year revenue impact is about 3.1 million across the general fund and debt service fund. And then this shows our taxable levy with that homestead exemption. So the dark blue is what we receive, and the gold shaded areas shows that impact of the homestead exemption. Our homestead exemption is at 15% and helps, excuse me, provide direct affordability for homeowners. It also keeps our commercial and residential tax base consistent, which I'll show in the next slide. I did want to just highlight on this slide that the dark blue is what we receive as a city. The gold is the reduction due to that homestead exemption that the city has. It's a specific city exemption. This slide shows the comparison of the tax base between the commercial and residential property. And you'll see in 2018 it did jump to that 70%. That was due to the annexation of Greatwood and New Territory. And then we've been about there since then, and that's due to using the homestead exemption to make sure we're about that same level. This is an answer to your question, Councilmember Watley. Our 5-year historical average growth for both residential and commercial is at 6.1% and 4.5%. So these last 2 years have been an anomaly for the city.
Councilor Watley?
This is, you're not gonna wanna answer this because you don't know. This is gonna play a huge impact on our tax rate because we've always based it on growth. And now we're seeing probably a fix from what COVID did to us in those growing numbers. If we're looking at a fix on property values and an adjustment that should have been done as expected, what do you think we're going to do going forward? I mean, are we going to stay flat? Are we going to start basing it off of, are we going to start looking at how we base our forecast on property growth?
Yes, it will definitely, and if we don't receive the property growth value, that value growth, then it will impact what our tax rate has to be.
Absolutely.
And so we've always assumed a 3.5% value growth, and that's currently still what's in the model to keep our M&O tax rate flat.
So are we now looking at readjusting that model based on what we're seeing now and what we may see in the future?
Yes, we're definitely looking at what that could impact our tax rate.
Councilor Single?
Looking at the last 2 years where it grew only between 1 to 2%, I think it looks like from the market the next 3-4 years would be not more than 2%. So it will be worth doing the model with a 2% instead of 3.5%.
Mm-hmm. And what that will, like we talked about last week, is we're forecasting our expenditures to grow at 3%. So it will either come from our rate or from our valuation. So it's the balance of that. The also hope is we have been doing a lot of redevelopment projects that should hopefully help bring in those values, such as Lake Point and the other areas. So I did want to highlight again, we have seen these trends, which is why the city did focus so much on reducing our expenditures. Over the past two budget cycles, we did reduce 7.5 million in efficiencies and eliminated 30 positions. So we have been looking at those valuations and trying to correct our expenditures. But to continue to provide those high level of services, we have to plan for all of those expenditures that continue to grow just like everywhere else.
When you say the past two budget cycles, you're talking about FY26 and FY27?
Yes. So next, we had a question to provide our property tax to our neighboring cities. This provides, you can see where we're at with our tax rate compared to our neighboring cities, but also shows where we're at on our O&M, which funds the general fund.
Yes, Councilmember Jacobson.
As I understand it, Fulshear does not provide the same type of services because
they
it's a
do not.
city of muds. And then Rosenberg has been in the news lately because they're out of money. So, and then Stafford doesn't, Stafford has zero.
Yes. And also Stafford they've been having conversations about reducing services as well because they do not have a property tax. I will highlight this is with our current property tax rate. We're not going to talk about our future rate and show where we're at with the. But before we get there, I do like to show the slide, and it's not just to remind everyone to shop local, but shop in Sugar Land. It's important. But I did want to highlight this that we always talk about that 1.5% that goes to the general fund. Actually, half of the percent is dedicated to property tax relief. So as our our sales tax numbers continue to grow, that is built in our calculation for the no new revenue rate and our voter approval rate. So it does provide immediate relief to have people shop in Sugar Land in that sales tax. So with that, residents have saved approximately $354 annually on their property tax bill. And then jumping right into our truth in taxation calculations. The proposed tax rate is 0.381116. This is above the no new revenue rate, but remains below the voter approval rate. Councilmember Betcher, you asked last week about the unused increment, so that's shown right here. About 1.4 cents of it came from the prior year and represents about 2.9 million in foregone revenue.
Councilmember Betcher.
Yeah, so when I look at this, the tax rate that we went from with no new revenue is 3.355. What we're proposing is the 0.381, which is what, a 7.2% increase?
6.2.
6.2.
And if you exclude, because we obviously reduced in previous years the budget, which reduced the tax rate. If you exclude those savings, if we simply just bump it up by 3.5%, that puts us at what, the 0.363?
0.363.
Yeah, 0.363. So I guess one of the questions is, with what we did last year, are we looking to hold those savings, or are we looking to blow through those and basically jump up to the max?
I don't understand what that means, hold those savings or blow through them.
So the way the state legislature set it up, right? You get 3.5% year on year. And because we didn't use it, what we're saying is, we saved it last year, but now we're saying, well, now we're gonna max it out again.
They also set it up where you have unused increment.
That's what I'm
You can
saying.
Utilize that, and the budget we presented, there's not a way to get to the 363,579 without significant service reductions, and so that's just the reality.
Councilmember Jackson.
Okay, help me out, because there's a distinction that needs to be made. When they say the no new revenue, what they mean is, we bring in exactly the same dollars as we did last year, right?
Close, yes.
Okay, all right. So the rate increases by X percent, but what is the percent increase to the median household in their taxes on this proposed rate?
Yes, we're gonna talk about it. I don't have the percent off the top of my head, but the dollar amount is less than $8 a month for the median household.
Mayor, the point I was making is, it seems like the savings we did last year was purely symbolic, and now we've maxed it out again. That's the perception that I'm getting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how it was symbolic. It was an actual reduction in staffing. It's an impact on the staff that's still here. The reality is, you look at what our costs are and what they increase every single year. That's just the reality. And so, this year, we're recommending to reduce, more employees, right? I don't anticipate filing a budget in the next several years where there's not gonna still be a reduction of staffing. I mean, we go through very methodically, look at every position as they come open. But, those savings, this year, all the savings are needed to just fund the core aspects of running the government, the core aspects of just compensation for public safety. You look at that number, that's several millions of dollars right there. So, yeah, those savings aren't symbolic. If we did cut them, those would be here and worse today, so.
Right, yeah, because we kept M&O flat for this fiscal year. I mean, the staff had to go back and amend the budget and, take over $1 million out of it, which better positioned us for this year. But still this year, like I said, the increase is, about half of what it was last year in revaluations. And so, so now we've got a situation where we have now, we've got a lot of inflation and very little growth of revenues.
So had we not kept it flat last year and we maxed out, the same NNR would apply, right? We'd still be at the same spot. Because we'd still be capped, we wouldn't have an extra.
No, the no new revenue rate would have been higher this year because it's based off of what last year's valuation. All of these would have shifted up.
Right, but then we wouldn't have that extra unallocated tax that we didn't use in previous years. So wouldn't we roughly be at the same spot anyways?
No, because if we hadn't made the reductions we made of that 7.5 million, we would have had a 7.5 million negative amount in our budget. It's not that, expenditures keep growing. So these cuts are in response to those continued expenditure growth. So it's not that we are just spending the same ones and putting back the same services that we cut the last time. We didn't put those positions back in. It's that we are providing the same level of services and everything has gotten more expensive. So if we had done last year and increased the revenue, then our rates wouldn't have, our no new revenue rate would be higher this year. That's what is different here.
Councilmember Singleton.
So I think there are two ways to look at it. One is what is allowed by the law. We are using maximum possible. Last year we did not. But the really way to look at it, the expenditure versus the revenue coming from tax, because we are wanting to balance the revenue and expense. Of course, if we were willing to cut into our fund balance, then you could have lower tax increase. But if we want to balance the budget, only way to cut tax rate would be to reduce the expense. And that is something, possibly if the council is interested, we can still talk about where it can be cut. But this is what has been presented. And the fact is that after taking the one-time expense out, because our expense is going from 137.8 to 146, which is 6.5%, hence you need to make 6.5% increase in the tax rate, because the valuation is remaining roughly flat. There's the big picture.
Councilmember Betcher.
Oh, the point I was making is our voter approval rate with the unused increment, had we used that increment last year, right, would that have any impact on our voter approval rate this year? Or would it be roughly the same?
It would be roughly the same.
Right.
Because we would have,
And now we're back at the max, basically.
as expenditures continue to grow.
So if next year, assuming the expenditure goes at the same rate, then we will be hit with the voter approval rate, because then we will not have that extra leverage. Because this 3.5%, if I understand correctly, is on M&O portion only.
Yes.
It's not on the total
That's
rate.
correct.
So that MNO portion, if you take 3.5 of 2.0, it's less than a cent. So we are using all the unused portion of that increment to get to 2.2 cent increase in the MNO portion of this.
Yeah, and so really, and to Councilman Single's point earlier, your options are to do this, your options are to reduce expenditures. You mentioned, one-time use of fund balance, which is not a good option. It's not in our financial management statements. We would, so like where we're at here is the budget that I filed is the best budget I can file to try to maintain services. And even then, it's going to be iffy. I mean, I think our directors, I'm putting them in an position, but so it's this, or we need to drastically, reduce expenditures, which means drastically reduce services in a very direct way. Part of the challenge is this city is a high amenity, high level of service city. I mean, we're not ranked #1 in Texas for the best places to live for no good reason. I would also mention that our tax rate is about half of what the average is for the other 9 cities that are in that same grouping. So that's really the policy decision for the council is, or do you want to try to maintain what has, in my opinion, make Sugarland different? Or do you want to go here, and at that point you're reducing services? And then what are you going to look like in 10 years when you become a low service city without a growing tax base? And so that's kind of the challenge we're putting on your laps to wrestle with.
I mean, our residents have an expectation for us to maintain the high quality of services. As we saw last week, I mean, we're already holding on filling, 6 recruitment positions in PD. We're holding off on the paramedic training for, our fire and EMS, and we're making some significant, real cuts on what we'd like to get to this point. Councilman Jacobson?
One of the distinction I'd like to make is that when we have this level of service and this level of amenities, it makes us money because we get recognition, and it makes it much easier to recruit businesses who bring in jobs and such. We got a new industrial park coming up. We need to keep these level of services. We need to keep our place in the world so that we can continue to recruit, because if we don't, I can't even imagine what's going to happen to the tax rate or the services. So I'm thinking, and this is getting ahead of everything, but a little less than $8 a month is an investment by the people who live here in keeping their property values and their quality of life at least level. So that's the way I see that.
Councilor Watley?
Thank you. I think, to your point, Stuart, Councilmember Jacobson, when you take out the debt service for the voter-approved CIP projects, what are we looking at for M&O on a dollar basis? So it's not $8, it's more like what?
So most of what like this slide shows, all of this tax rate increase is for M&O this year.
Okay. But even looking at that, to his point, we live in a high amenity city, and we have voter-approved capital improvement projects that, we have to look at. And if we don't look at it now, and we said this last year, it's gonna hit us if we see property values stay flat or don't come back. And we did something last year, we knew that was gonna happen this year. And I don't want that to happen again this year. We need to be proactive to prepare for next year. Maybe we have a bumper crop next year. But at any rate, when we have the property tax values come in higher, obviously we have more revenue coming in. When they come in lower, it's going to affect their tax rate coming in a little lower on their tax rate because their values are less, right? So it all kind of bleeds together. Yes. The last thing I want to do is make decisions, cut services in a panic mode, not thinking for the future. So I want to keep that in mind. Let's not cut services anymore or look at things that make this city less than what it is for $8. And I take your 65 exemption, please, if you're older. But let's keep looking at this in a futuristic thought. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Lake Point Green's gonna be coming,
It's coming. It's
on. They're
coming.
gonna be very busy with that. AOI's got the $300 million expansion in the city. The new manufacturing pharmaceutical is gonna be coming on. I Deliver, I never remember that name. You've got a lot of different things. Hope Biosciences, you've got the expansion, we've got Plug and Play. We've got a lot of things going on to help, attract and retain our businesses and help expand our businesses here. That's gonna take a little bit of time, but so, yeah, I look at this, I expect it to be a little bit low again next year on the revaluation, but then after that, I think we're gonna be back on the uptick again, so I agree with you. So Councilmember Jacobson?
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to mention is that people love to say, wow, you're not being conservative, you're raising taxes, blah, 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 you're spending more, blah, blah, blah. Conservative does not, being conservative with money does not mean saying no to everything. Being conservative means maintaining and using your assets in a way that is most efficient and effective and at the lowest reasonable cost, so that you preserve those assets for their ultimate use in the future. I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about for the last several years is the idea that we are a mature city now, right? And most cities, when they hit this peak, they go down into a trough, and it takes them 50 years to be rediscovered. And we are effectively holding off that decline. And we're doing it by maintaining our service levels and redevelopment and bringing people in. And because our staff is so good, we got the best possible developer for Lake Point singing our praises, and in Imperial, we've got some people lining up who are really interested. And so if anybody says we're not being conservative, we are absolutely the definition of conservative, because we are conserving your property values, we are conserving your schools, we are conserving everything that you, every reason that you have invested in Sugar Land as a homeowner. So yes, this is very conservative. This is about as thin as we can make it and still be Sugar Land. So.
But yes, like I said, that's a good point. We're sort of on that flat part now, but then after this, these other projects come on, we'll be back on the uptrend, the growth trend again.
Just to kind of maybe bring close to this, all of the projects that the mayor just mentioned, they happened, the business owners and leaders made those decisions to make the investments in Sugar Land because of all the other things we've been talking about, the things that, the awards that we've won. You know, we are the top-ranked city in the state. We're number 3 in the country. Businesses look at that type of stuff when they make their decision on where to grow their business or where to bring a new business. And without all of those accolades, those decisions are made, they go someplace else. So to Councilman Jacobson's point, you can't be a whole lot more conservative than that. And I said this last week, I'm going to reiterate it again today. You know, nobody in this room, council members included, the mayor included, nobody in this room wants to raise taxes. We all have to pay them too. I don't want to pay higher taxes, but I also want to continue to live in the city that I'm extremely proud to be in, that is always ranked in the top of whatever category you want to look at. We are the best, and I want to continue to be the best. And if that means I got to pay an extra $10 a month, then I think that's $10 well spent. So I guess my message is, everybody in this room, you know, nobody wants to raise taxes. I think everybody in this room is doing a fantastic job, and as good a job as they can do to make sure that we are able to maintain those that high level of quality and service in a reasonable manner. I'll shut up.
I know you tried to end this. But piling on, the thing about the tax rate, and we talk about the median household, it affects different people by different dollars. Those who have more modest homes will pay less per month, and those who have more expensive homes will pay more. So that's the median. So it is mindful of those who can and can't afford the increment.
And if I may, Councilmember, 75% will see less than $10 a month. So we talked about $10 at the spring retreat, and that was for the median. 75% will see less than $10 a month.
Yeah, and again, we're about 36 cents, potentially going to 38 cents. But, I mean, again, going back to the chart earlier, you know, Missouri City is 57 cents. You've got Pearland at 63 cents, quite a bit higher than us. Houston, 52 cents. And the amount of services and the quality, you know, just our community compared to Houston, roads and all this stuff going on there, I mean, there's no comparison. And it's very important to maintain, I said, not only the quality of our services, but also schools, I said, to attract businesses and residents to our city.
I did want to just highlight this chart real quick. We've had conversations, you can't just compare them. But I just want to highlight, we tried to look at services that the city of Sugarland provided compared to some of those comparison cities that have similar population to us. So you can see on the top, we have the lowest M&O rate of all of them. And anything red, they are unfavorable compared to us. And the purples, they are close to us. So we have the second highest homestead exemption. We provide 311. We have city EMS where a lot of the cities do not.
Jeez.
Our parks per acre is very high. And then our residents per sworn PD is very high compared to other cities. So that just highlights, we're not just talking about the rate, but we're also looking at, you can compare kind of those cities. And I know it's very busy, but it was the best effort that we could kind of show it. And this is only a few of the things. This was helped with some city interns this summer, but also my team trying to do their own research and looking at what other cities have out there.
Great.
And then jumping to this, we've talked about that it's the less than $8 a month for 50% and less than $10 a month for about the 75% of the residents. And this just shows our history of property tax rate. And it does highlight that we were once at 0.5 cents. And as new values came in, we were able to lower that tax rate. And then also we've grown our homestead exemption throughout the years to maintain that balance between residential and commercial.
Councilor Jacobson?
Since I'm pontificating, I will continue. Richmond just lowered their property tax rate, which is great. But it's easy to lower your property tax rate when you're constantly putting new value on the ground.
Yes.
I mean, the county is holding their tax rate. Good for them. That's good for us, right? Except that there's tons of new value coming on the ground. When you get to the point where you don't have unlimited new value coming on the ground, that's when you got to make hard decisions. It's easy. Look here. It's easy when there's a lot of building going on in your city.
Jumping to this side, I did also want to highlight that while we do collect the revenue, our agreements with those that in city MUDs, we give a portion of it back to those MUDs so that those residents aren't taxed twice through that. So not all of that will be remained in the city to provide those services. So this year in 26, this is tax year, but fiscal year 26, we're anticipating 4.6 million going to the MUDs. And then this is just a reminder, we talked about this last week. After the calculations were done, we did reduce our general fund revenue slightly. And that was through reduction of the MUDs and then pulling it from the high-tech replacement fund. And lastly, I did want to highlight this slide. This is our scenario if we left our tax rate flat throughout the year. In fiscal year 28, we are assuming our values go back to 3.5%. And you can see that that 8.0 million is in that second year. If we pull out that one-time expense for public safety revenue, public safety radios, we would need to reduce 5.1 million in the next 2 years. And this is assuming that next year we go to the 3.5% valuation for that with property tax rates equal. So it. And then jumping to Tuesday, we have the record vote. This is the maximum rate published and to schedule a public hearing This is not the final adoption of the rate, it's just what we will put on our announcement for the public hearings. This is the required motion language when we adopt the property tax, with the current proposed property tax rate. And so at this point, we're asking council for direction on the maximum rate to bring forward for the August 18th record vote. As I mentioned, our proposed rate of 0.381116 supports a structurally balanced budget and the high level of services residents expect.
So are we on item B right now, or are we just on the agenda, or?
No, item B is just a
That's
recording.
that's just a recording thing, okay. So we'll just go around, Councilmember Jacobson?
I'm good with it.
Okay, Councilmember Becker?
So, I mean, obviously it's a concern that for the NNR, the proposed rate is 7.3% over it. I understand, like, I'm not recommending don't do any tax increase, right? I think that's off the table, not even possible. Obviously we have, inflationary pressures on us. We have, electricity went up significantly and other costs. It looks like that's gonna put us closer to the voter approval rate, which is where we're currently at. I'd like to see it, I think it's probably at this point semantics, right? Whether we budget it or we say it's going to reserve and we're not gonna budget it directly, it's just sitting there flexible, right? It's gonna protect us for the future in case the legislature does change things and puts an even more significant pressure on us to keep costs down. Now they're looking at, population and inflationary increases as like a cap on how much we can increase in the future. We just have to make sure we keep cost pressures as low as possible, because in the future, obviously if we use up any excess that we have this year, we're gonna be at that 3.5 cap every year after that, basically. So, I think we just need to continue looking at what costs we can continue to keep low. One comment which we can probably deep dive into later. I think on that one slide where you had the growth of property taxes, but also the growth of public service, public safety, it went up 25 million in 5 years? That's pretty significant. So I don't think it was unsafe in 2021. So how things got to where we are today, probably need to look at that a little bit further. But more widespread, just need to make sure that we're not growing at that same significant rate that far exceeds inflation. Otherwise, we will put ourselves in significant pressure later on. So, I'm not happy that we're having to increase property taxes by that 7.3%. But that's kind of the world we're living in, it seems.
Well, it's a little over 6%, yeah, but yes, I understand.
It depends if you're using the current rate or the NNR rate.
And again, this is for a record vote, the actual vote on the actual property tax rate.
Right, you can always go lower,
There's
so
nothing
you can put it
go
at the,
lower. It's gonna be
you
the
can put it at the
third
trigger
Saturday
rate,
of
and
September, or Tuesday in
it
September.
would move on, right?
Councilor Watley?
No one likes to do it, but I understand the need and the value, and it's a yes.
Okay. Councilor Single?
Yeah, so I may be minority in the room, so of course I understand the inflationary pressure, and because the property value have gone only 1% or so, we have to increase. I'm fully supportive of salary increase and other thing which we discussed. I would have preferred more to have the expenses grow 3 to 4%, maybe 4%. Currently our expenses are growing 6.5%. That's why we have to increase the tax like this. So my preference would be to increase it, but to the level of 0.37. So 1 cent decrease from what is proposed, and that to be achieved by 2 million cut or reduction in the spending. Now, if there is a consensus or majority to go in that direction, I offer to sit back with, it can be achieved from the fleet fund, TMRS and other thing, and also maybe further organization restructuring or reduction. That is what my preference is. I am very uncomfortable raising tax by 7%, which is much higher than the inflation rate.
Well, one thing I just want to say, I appreciate the staff work done on this and the presentation. I think it's much better than we got last year for this budget. Services, I appreciate Stuart's pontifications. But I think if we're going to maintain the highest level of services which people appreciate, and public safety, and I appreciate your comments, Sanjay, but I'm okay with it.
Okay. Councilman Bonahart?
And I would echo what Councilman Rick there said. And I would add to it that, and reiterate something I said earlier, if we want to continue to see our city grow, if we want to continue to see our city always named in the top 5 of whatever ranking you want to look at, then I think we have to do this. And so, yes.
Okay, yeah, and I support the proposed rate for the record vote. And just to tell a story, our nephew's a firefighter with a neighboring city. And unfortunately, a young man got into an argument with his mother, and he shot himself. And of course, my nephew arrived on the scene, called for ambulance. It took the ambulance 25 minutes to get there. And what's our average response? Yeah, less than 10. And so anyway, it took so long to get him to the hospital. By the time that they got him into surgery, decided to try to save his life, he died. And so I was thinking, wow, this young man's life was cut short over an argument with his mom. And I was thinking, wow, if an ambulance had been able to get there shorter, less time than 25 minutes, his life could have been saved maybe. And so that's just having the high quality of services that we have here in Sugarland it's just really amazing compared to, like I said, some of our neighboring cities. And that's something I really appreciate. And I said, I like to keep the tax rate as low as possible, but also we have to balance with providing that level of quality of services that our residents expect, which is why we get such a high percentage of citizens being satisfied during our citizen surveys.
We'll bring forward that proposed rate on Tuesday. And it looks like we can pull it in parks.
Oh, boy. Okay, we'll let you go this time.
Okay, you sure? You sure? Okay. I know, I'm always excited, I am the director of funds, Department of Funds, so we're gonna try to, bring some fun to the discussion always. All right. Parks and Recreation. So residents and folks are using parks more than ever, but I just want to say that this isn't a surprise. This is intentional. This is all due to the hard work of our fabulous staff. And behind every one of these numbers is a staff member and a story. So these are all numbers that we're continuing to work towards, continuing to increase. And we have a fabulous team that maintains our parks and that brings our parks to life. And the growth isn't stopping. It will continue to grow. We expect more folks to visit our parks as we continue to invest in our parks. Some of these investments are up here on the screen. Of course, we already talked about our pickleball courts in City Park and the tremendous asset that is. That was funded by 4B. Up in the top, we have Park at the Levee. That was funded by the Levee Improvement District. We saw in the spring a 25% increase in folks year over year coming to that park because of those investments. The middle picture, we are super excited about our splash pad. It looks like we're going to be able to open at the end of September, so hopefully y'all will get an invitation to that soon. But of course, that's going to bring more folks to our parks and to that investment, and we're excited about that as well. So we continue to stretch our resources further. We're doing so through things like volunteers. We use volunteers a lot in recreation for our events, and at our senior center is all operated by volunteers. But we're increasing our use of volunteers in development and maintenance as well. But these partnerships just supplement our efforts. They don't replace them. Jessie, she already talked about some of these dashboards, but her department has been tremendous in helping us look at these assets that we have and help us develop a plan for the future and how we handle these assets with our current budget. So the dashboards that we've created and that her department has created for us and with us really help us to prioritize what we have and help us plan for the future and help us use the funds wisely in that area. I did also want to put in a plug for Chalet and her group. We were able to, with their help, apply for a Texas Parks and Wildlife grant here recently for $750,000. So we're hopeful there, fingers crossed, that we'll be able to use that towards Cullinan Park and those improvements. So for
FY27 are reductions in some of our funding shifts. Shalane mentioned this in the last presentation, but we were able to shift some of our spending for special events for the Community Expo out of the general funds to the special events fund. So that's a reduction to the general fund of $402,859. As y'all recall, Fort Bend County is now taken over control and maintenance of Duhasek Park. So that's a reduction of our general fund spending there of almost $50,000. Our parks maintenance reductions are about $52,000. And when we go to the next slide, we can see how that impacts overall. But we do have, as we've talked about, increases in electricity and utilities and contractual increases in some of that. So this is to balance some of those increases there as well. Some of these reductions are pressure washing, ant bait, and lake maintenance contracts. And then we're also proposing an increase in part-time employee pay of about $25,000.
Councilor Watley.
Thank you, Mayor. Kimberly, we had one of the come to us at one time. Remember, we came to talk about the yoga instructor, talked about pay for instructors and how it was affecting him.
Yes.
Can you hit on that and tell us if that's going to affect any of our pay or anything that's going on right now in this budget?
Sure. So we're not proposing that be increased. There's no increase in that split being planned. We'll get to a little bit of where we talk about fees and some of those things, but I can address that now. So we looked at fees really heavily last year and some of the ways and the cost of doing business, et cetera, because we have done things the way we've done things, right, for many, many, many years. Since I got here about 20 years ago, like these last few years are the first times that we've really been challenged to look at things differently and to kind of, right-size things. So for our instructor, we used to do an 80-20 split, but when I got here, all we did was provide keys and say, go do your thing. The city is providing a lot more for our instructors than we have in the past. We handle all of the registrations, we create the flyers, do the advertisements, handle the customers as they come in. We have better facilities, all the maintenance, et cetera. So, and when we looked at those splits, like that increase is in line with what other cities are doing. So we really heavily looked at everything, the cost of doing business, what our fees that we'll talk about later, they're not arbitrary. They're all based on data and are very intentional.
Thank you for the clarity.
Well, to follow up on Councilor Watley, per the speaker that came last week, so going from the 80-20 to the 70-30, that's a reduction in the split of 12.5%. And so here, you've got someone, for the example of the speaker from last time, who has given very generously to the city for free classes for 19 years without any compensation there. And then at the same time is also doing some classes at IPRC. And so that has resulted in a reduction, personally to him, of $150 per month after 19 years of service. And that's I don't know. And then also, I understand we want to have our cost recovery and stuff like that. When you're looking at, like say IPRC or something, you've got really the square footage of the class. I know our utility costs are going way, way up, but really you're looking at the percentage of the square feet of that classroom divided by the total, square footage of the building. So maybe that classroom's only, like 5 or 6% of the total square footage. I don't know what it is. And then you're looking at, 1 hour out of, 168 hours of week where you have the lights turned on versus being turned off in that room. And so I understand the cost recovery, but I also want to think about it from almost an incremental standpoint in that, on that too. So yeah, it is a little bit concerning.
I would also say, using that example, he's also been able to run a business for 19 years without ever paying an electricity bill or paying rent or paying the capital cost and you have a lot of other people in the city that are paying all those costs every month to be able to operate. So it is a balance. It's not, the Parks Department doesn't get excited about reducing the revenue for an instructor at all. But it's trying to also, these are public assets, and then how much of those is appropriate to be paid or not paid, so. But if the council wants us to look at those fees again, we can do it, but I think we're at a good spot.
What would the cost, yeah, I would be curious as a follow-up and for a follow-up for next week. What would be the cost of going for the indoors from going from the 70-30 versus the 80-20, just for that? Councilor Wentworth.
I mean, if we're gonna look at it, and I don't really care to dig into it, I trust your judgment, but if we're gonna look at it, we need to balance it with all the information, not just what he said, but what Kimberly pointed out, that we're doing the marketing, we're paying for all the, everything that's included in this. You're right, there's a balance, so we need to take everything into account, not just hearing from one side of the story, because it sounds very different.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I do know that the instructors, they do a lot of, they do, sort of marketing on their own and emails and YouTubes and stuff, also trying to, increase the, participation of the classes and stuff. But I know it's a tough thing to balance here.
I just want to say, Kimberly and her team have done what you just described. When they came up with the new fee structure, they did all the things you were talking about, so.
Councilor Single?
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to just point out one thing, that maybe in future we need to look at covering more of park expenses from SL4B, etc. Because if I believe those can support the park, not for this year, but maybe in future to reduce the pressure on the property tax, possibly it will be good to shift some of the expenses to be covered from either the HOT tax or the SL4B, because we will have sales tax growth hopefully continue, but property tax we are seeing we are already reaching kind of a bottleneck.
Yeah, we can use SL4B for quality of life, and so maybe some things like this could be covered under that.
Something to consider.
So this is our overall financial summary. As you see, we've been able to essentially keep things flat, about $7 million for this fiscal year. Again, we do have contract increases, but have been able to make some strategic reductions in order to hold our budget flat. So we talked a little bit about financial sustainability, but want to go into that in greater depth. Consultant to really understand the cost of doing business and taking all of that budget that you just saw and assigning it to different categories to really understand the cost of providing services to our city. And it's not just fees. Fees are a part of that, certainly, but there are other tools in our toolbox when it comes to those things. Some of those things are efficiencies, where we can identify partnerships, cost savings, grants. One of the things that y'all touched on last time, but it was already in our presentation, is exploring naming opportunities at parks. That's something that we've developed a preliminary plan for, something that we might look at to offset some of those general fund costs. Obviously generating revenues where appropriate, and again, right-sizing fees and services. And again, our fees that we're raising and looking at, it's not an arbitrary number. It's based on data and what it actually costs to deliver each service. So the foundation of our cost recovery is here, and it's really based on common good versus exclusive use. So where a service provides a common good, like open access activities, so that's our parks. So we don't charge to use our parks. So we, as a city, we expect no cost recovery from that basic service. But as you move up the ladder, where something provides a private benefit, like if you're having a private tennis instructor or a fitness instructor, we would expect you to cost recover that more. We would expect you, as you're having that exclusive use, to pay more of that percentage for that service. So this is the basis of our cost recovery. And when we looked at this, we looked at sort of the differentiation between what our target was and what we actually recover. And from that, we saw two of our greatest opportunities are in drop-in activities, and those are our memberships to TE Harmon and IPRC, and also our rentals. So that's the rentals of any of our parks and pavilions and those community centers. So those are the two fees that we focused on quite heavily last year. And as you may recall, we had a 3-year plan for cost recovery. Our target being 75% cost recovery of these. We're in year 2 of that. 2026 is what the fees were last year, and then of course 2027. That's our proposal for this year. So that's raising those incrementally. We have, as we mentioned last year, and it's worth mentioning again, We are only doing this on specific facilities. We have other facilities, such as a room at City Park that we rent out, that we're not quite ready to increase the fees to get to this cost recovery level. There's a lot more marketing and some of those other activities that will help us increase that cost recovery level other than just fees. But those types of rooms are, we have an increase of just CPI for those other rooms, but these are specific facilities. So those were our rooms. Here are our pavilions. Again, increased to 75% cost recovery over this 3-year span. And then for residents, for non-residents, our target is 100% cost recovery for these pavilions. And the 2026 fees took effect in January, and we are not seeing any decrease in rental usage based on these fees. And then these are our baseball, soccer, these are our sports fields and those rental fees. Our recreation center fees for IPRC and T. Harmon, these were big jumps from what we had before. If you recall, we were charging about $12 a year for these facilities, so we've made some pretty big jumps here. $50 for a recreation center this year took place in January, and $25 for T. Harmon Center took place this January, so we have some incremental raises from there. And I'll tell you, our because of the increase in the facility of the IPRC with the fitness room, we have seen just a jump in check-ins. It was on one of the first slides. So we've seen a jump in memberships and a jump in use and check-ins because of that asset that we were able to provide through the 4B Corporation.
She answered my question.
Okay, go ahead.
And we haven't seen a decrease in T. Harmon Center membership as well. Of course, it's as y'all discussed, when you raise fees, folks are gonna say something, but
It's still very reasonable.
It's very, very reasonable. This is an annual fee. This isn't a monthly fee. This is an annual.
Yeah, because some health clubs are charged $169 or $189 a month. A month, literally. And so this is, going to be $60 to $50 for the entire year, and then all the free classes. There's a huge number of free classes.
And we're still able, if folks need it, we're still able to offer, divide this up monthly. If folks are having trouble with it, paying it all at once, we're still able to divide it up monthly. And for both of these areas, we have been increasing the things that we provide. For our T. Harmon Center, we've been able to increase classes by 10%. Our staff has done a tremendous job in being able to, do the puzzle and moving things around and being able to increase the services that we provide there. Our part-time staff, we rely on part-time staff. They're a tremendous asset to us. I think that in the city, we're probably one of the main departments that use part-time staff. The part-time staff were not included when we did our compensation study. So this is really their compensation study and increasing the proposed minimum pay of part-time staff.
Yeah, this is what made me think about, like I said, the instructor's comment, because we're looking at 20 to almost 50% increase in pay for the part-time recreation facilities, but which I know is needed for improved recruitment and retention, but then yet on the instructor side, it's 12.5% roughly, decrease. But I also appreciate, so the cost recovery we're trying to do.
So in closing, just despite the pressures that we're seeing and the increased usage, aging infrastructure, and growing use, we are, in the Parks Department, we are committed to providing, continuing to provide exceptional services for our community and our residents.
Thank you, Kimberly. Next up is Steve Dundy, Director of IT.
Mayor, man.
Okay,
Kimberly, I just want to commend you and your staff. I use these facilities.
Great.
When I first signed up at $11 a month, and that doesn't even cover the cost to process my credit card. So the increases are in line with your, but your staff is phenomenal. They go out of their way to help people in their place, so great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I can't bring the energy Kimberly did, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, try, Steve, try.
I'm just going to highlight a few things on here. This is some of the departmental highlights. A couple significant things. We did upgrade our backup and recovery platform To include immutable storage just means we can recover from any kind of disaster really, really fast. It makes it tamper-proof. We've got a major fiber upgrade we're doing with Easy Fiber. We're expanding the number of things we have on fiber from 10 items to about 100 at the same price. It's also a 30-year contract, so we have fixed prices now for a very long period of time. And then lastly, we replaced our phone system, shifted that to the cloud. We dropped about 400 megabytes doing that, so we'll save some money there as well. As a department, we focus on 3 categories. All our activities fall in these 3. For service delivery, we look at customer satisfaction. For project delivery, it's about managing expectations. And when it comes to lights on the infrastructure side, it's about availability. And we tend to trend pretty well there at the moment. We have 4 major efficiency efforts that we're working on right now. For software, we have an application rationalization program. We're looking to optimize our software portfolio to keep those costs as flat as we can. On the hardware side, we've got a provisioning program to efficiently track and allocate equipment. On the print side, we're trying to reduce the number of desktop printers per page. It's about 3 times what it is for the leased printers, so we're looking at some significant reductions there. And then on the telecommunications side, again, I already mentioned we dropped a lot of those landlines, but we're also looking at mobile devices as well, reducing that cellular spend. This is some of the challenge we're seeing. This is one of the biggest ones. It's about software spend. Our software spend has doubled since 2022. So a lot of this has to do with these new software as a service models. So we're shifting from a maintenance model where you pay up front and then pay maintenance against those licenses to one that's based on subscription. So it just spreads those costs out, but over time it becomes really, really expensive. And all our enterprise software is starting to shift in that direction. So this is something we're paying really, really close attention to and trying to keep that as level as we can.
Yeah. Comment?
Interesting.
One question is, when you purchase the software and you're converting to the subscription model, sometimes you do get credit because you paid into the equity of original software. Are we getting those credits?
We haven't seen any. So now when we move, our current ERP system, if we were to move that today, they weren't offering any credits. If we were to use like for like, so move from on-premise into the cloud. So we haven't seen a lot of that, but we'll definitely ask if we're going to shift from something that we already own.
Thank you.
This is this is our budget for FY27. We have a slight increase, about $200,000 in purchase services. That's for the centralized data repositories. This is the data warehouse that Chalet mentioned, I think, last Thursday. This will help us centralize a lot of data. We are a very data-driven organization, but accessing that information can be difficult. We're very fragmented. So to centralize a lot of that data, make it available for analysis, but also for future AI efforts and things like that. So we got our eye on the future when it comes to that. We have a slight decrease in professional services. That's related to that Easy Fiber project, so some of those implementation costs go away. Everything, when you look at that purchase services area, 95% of that software. So you can see how that IT department split up between basically payroll and software. That's most of our spend. We do have some offsetting decreases on software, so we have kind of leveled out on that. So the past 2 years, it hasn't really grown significantly, and that's been through a lot of diligence. We're reducing our travel budget a bit, and then we should see some savings on the telecommunication side and on the network side as a result of the Easy Fiber and telephony projects. And I believe that is.
Okay. Any questions, Councilor Fisher?
No, Mayor. Do we do a security assessment review on a yearly basis, or how frequently do we do it? Is it in-house? Do we outsource? And then does it show up in this cost somewhere?
Kind of all the above. We have monthly penetration tests that are done through CISA, that's the governmental organization. Once a year or once every other year, we'll have a third party come in to do externally and internal penetration tests to see where we're at. And then we do a lot of internal training and things like that when it comes to cybersecurity in general. We do tabletop exercises and things like that. So we spend a lot of time training through our cybersecurity program.
Follow up. Is that part of our purchase services line item then, or what?
It'll be part of professional services.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Steve, and we're back to Shalay for next steps.
Just a quick part of a reminder, we have 2 more budget workshops. August 20th is where we're gonna be talking about our corporations and our enterprise funds. And then August 27th, we'll have our follow-up items that we talked about. Specifically, there was a question on the unfunded request and then HOP proposal.
Glad you're excited.
And then just a few, these are our council meeting updates. On Tuesday, you will see me again. We are having our budget public hearing and then that record vote on the tax rate. September 1st, we have a couple public hearings as well. September 8th is our special council meeting for the public hearing for property tax. And then the 15th is where we finish with the adoption of the budget and the tax rate.
So now we have our item. Mr. Mike.
Yeah, I would encourage the council that if you have any questions or beliefs or anything when it comes to the budget, you can just send those in advance, like once you know it. That way we can make sure we can get responses to everybody, but we can be prepared to answer kind of anything. So like if you have any of those, I understand sitting here, a lot of those things will come up, but if you have it, you know it. If you want to send it in, we'll do a staff analysis on it and get it out so that everybody can get great responses. Thank you.
Okay, so our next item is 4B, certified tax roll and truth in taxation calculations. Receive and record into the minutes the Fort Bend County Tax Assessor collected certified tax roll, estimated collection rate, and truth in taxation calculations.
So you just need it noted in the minutes that we received these from the county.
Okay, very good. Any other questions, comments before we finish?
And I will highlight that the truth in taxation calculation is on the website for anyone.
Okay.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Man, thank you. Good job.
9 minutes early today. Yeah, we got caught up from the stuff from last week. Yeah, and we didn't have 11 comments.